What if the very first act of creation was not a flash of blinding light, but a scream that is still vibrating inside your cells right now? In exactly 11 minutes, you will understand why ancient texts from Egypt to India refer to the universe not as a place, but as a song, and how unlocking this specific frequency changes the way you interact with physical matter forever. Most people never notice that the Bible does not begin with the creation of light. It begins with a voice speaking into the void. The detail nobody talks about is that in the Vedic tradition, thousands of years before the Bible, the universe is called Nada Brahma, which literally means the world is sound. Your thoughts aren't just abstract ideas. Neuroscientists have found they are measurable frequencies that ripple out like sound waves. In 1967, a Swiss scientist proved that if you play a specific frequency into a pile of chaotic sand, it spontaneously arranges itself to perfect geometric patterns that look exactly like ancient mandalas. String theory, the most advanced model of physics we have today, states that subatomic particles aren't little solid balls, but vibrating strings of energy, essentially musical notes. The Vatican Library contains accounts of Gregorian chants that were used not for worship, but to induce specific states of consciousness that dissolved pain instantly. But the craziest thing happens when you realize that the silence you hear in deep meditation isn't empty. It is a frequency so high that your brain translates it as nothingness. Ready for the first step that changes how you hear reality? We have been trained to trust our eyes. We believe that if we can touch it, see it, and measure it, it is real. But this reliance on vision is a recent evolutionary trap. For the vast majority of human history, the ears were the primary gateway to the divine. The ancients understood something that we have forgotten in our obsession with screens and pixels. They understood that sight observes the surface of things, but sound penetrates the center. You cannot see around a corner, but you can hear around it. Vision separates you from the object. Sound physically enters your body and vibrates your bones. This is why every single creation myth, without exception, begins with a noise. Consider the implications of the Logos. In the West, we translate the opening of the Gospel of John as, "In the beginning was the Word." We think of a spoken word, a grammatical structure. But the Greek concept of logos is far more terrifying and mechanical. It implies a ratio, a mathematical formula, a resonant frequency that organizes chaos into order. It is the architectural blueprint of reality, transmitted through vibration. When the ancient texts say God spoke, they are not describing a conversation. They are describing a sonic event, a frequency so powerful that it forced the quantum foam of potentiality to collapse into the hard matter you are sitting on right now. Have you ever felt a sudden vibration in your chest when hearing a low bass note, a sensation that felt more like a memory than a sound? The Egyptians knew this. If you walk through the temple complexes of Karnak or Luxor today, you are walking through a machine that has been turned off. We look at the granite statues and the massive obelisks, and we see art. But the priests who designed these structures were not artists. They were engineers of sound. Recent acoustic studies in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid have revealed that the room is tuned to a specific frequency that alters human brainwaves. It wasn't a tomb. It was a resonance chamber designed to amplify the human voice into a tool of transformation. They weren't praying to stone gods. They were using the stone to tune the god within. This brings us to a detail that modern education conveniently skips. We are told that the universe is made of atoms. But ask a quantum physicist what an atom is made of, and the solid world dissolves. They will tell you it is 99.999% empty space, but it's not empty. It is filled with energy vibrating at different rates. If you slow the vibration down, it becomes a rock. If you speed it up, it becomes light. If you speed it up further, it becomes thought. This means that you are not a solid biological entity moving through a static world. You are a symphony of frequencies holding itself together through the will of your own consciousness. You are a song that has convinced itself it is a statue. But here is where the story takes a turn that might make you uncomfortable. If the universe is built on sound, then everything is responsive to sound. In the 18th century, a German musician and physicist named Ernst Chladni took a violin bow and dragged it across the edge of a metal plate covered in sand. As the bow vibrated the plate, the sand didn't just shake, it jumped and danced until it formed intricate, perfectly symmetrical geometric shapes. Starbursts, hexagons, spirals. The moment the sound stopped, the sand collapsed back into chaos. This phenomenon, now known as cymatics, proves a law that the ancient alchemists guarded with their lives. Frequency dictates form. Matter does not exist independently. It is merely sand on the metal plate of the cosmos, held in shape by the background hum of the universe. And this leads to the terrifying question, who or what is playing the violin? In the ancient Hindu texts of the Rig Veda, They describe the Om not as a religious chant, but as the unstruck sound, the vibration that exists before the instrument is played. It is the hum of the vacuum itself. NASA has recorded the sound of the sun and the sound of deep space. It is a low, droning hum that permeates everything. When the monks in Tibet spend decades perfecting their throat singing, capable of producing 2 or 3 notes simultaneously, they are not just making music. They are trying to harmonize their personal frequency with this cosmic. They are trying to become the violin bow. But when a normal person in 2024 tries to tune into this frequency without preparation, the result is often not enlightenment, but a profound sense of disorientation, as if the solid ground is liquefying beneath their feet. We treat words as cheap commodities. We speak thousands of them a day, wasting them on complaints, gossip, and filler. We have forgotten that speech is a creative act. In Aramaic, the language spoken by Jesus, the word abracadabra is not a magician's trick. It translates roughly to "I create as I speak." The ancients believed that to speak a word was to release a packet of energy into the field, a command code that the universe is obligated to obey. This is why vows were sacred. This is why names were secret. To know the true name of a thing was to know its frequency, and therefore, to have power over it. Think about the feeling you get when someone screams in anger. You don't just hear it, you feel a physical impact in your gut. Your cortisol spikes, your muscles tense. That is a sonic weapon. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine a sound designed not to hurt, but to heal. A sound designed to rearrange the chaotic sand of your broken emotions back into a perfect geometric mandala. This is the lost technology of the mantra. It is not a prayer, it is a sonic key. Wait until you hear what happened to the French researcher Alfred Tomatis when he tried to restore the energy of exhausted Benedictine monks by simply reintroducing a specific Gregorian chant they had stopped performing. The monks had become depressed, lethargic, and physically ill after a new abbot banned their daily 6 hours of chanting to focus on practical. Tomatis didn't give them vitamins or therapy. He simply reinstated the chanting. Within months, their energy returned, their need for sleep decreased, and their health was restored. He discovered that the high-frequency harmonics in the chants were literally charging the cortex of the brain like a battery. They weren't singing to God. They were charging their biological capacitors. And this reveals the mechanism that the law of attraction gurus often. It is not enough to simply think about what you. Thoughts are high frequency, but they are often weak and scattered. Sound is visceral. Sound bridges the gap between the mental and the physical. When you speak your intention, you are adding mass to the thought. You are pulling it down from the ether and grounding it in the physical air. You are starting to arrange the sand. But there is a darker side to this law of vibration. If sound can create order, it can also create chaos. We live in a world of sonic pollution. The hum of refrigerators, the traffic, the constant background noise of the city. Most of this noise is dissonant. It breaks the geometry. Could it be that the anxiety, the fragmentation, and the feeling of being scattered that defines modern life is not just psychological, but a direct result of the frequencies we are bathing in 24 hours a day? Have you ever walked into a completely silent room and felt a sudden, overwhelming pressure in yours, as if the silence itself was a heavy object? This pressure is the first sign that you are reconnecting with the source. In the Gnostic traditions, there is a concept called the voice of the silence. It suggests that the true instruction manual for your reality is being broadcast 24/7, but the noise of your own mind and the noise of the world is jamming the signal. The creator isn't a man on a cloud. It is a broadcasting station, and you are a radio that has been tuned to static for your entire life. The mystery deepens when we look at the specific numbers. Why did the Greeks base their entire philosophy on the music of the spheres? Pythagoras, the father of mathematics, didn't just count beans. He spent time in Egypt. He learned that the planets themselves, in their orbits, create a hum, a massive, celestial chord. He believed that if a human being could tune their soul to this cosmic harmony, they would transcend the limitations of the body. He wasn't talking about enjoying a melody. He was talking about resonance. Resonance is the secret key. You know that if an opera singer hits the exact right note, a crystal glass will shatter. Why? Because the singer found the resonant frequency of the glass. The energy of the sound became the energy of the glass, until the structure could no longer hold it. Now, apply this to your own limitations. Your fear, your trauma, your physical ailments, they all have a structure, a frozen energy. If you can find the resonant frequency that matches them, and then amplify it, you can shatter them just like the glass. This is the principle behind the ancient healing temples of Asclepius in Greece, where patients were placed in dream chambers designed with specific acoustics. It is the principle behind the Native American drums and the shamanic rattles. They are not making music for entertainment. They are using rhythm to break up the stagnant energy blocks in the patient's field. They are using sound to liquefy the solid reality of the sickness. But the most mind-blowing connection comes from a place you might not expect: the cold, sterile laboratories of quantum mechanics. In the early 20th century, physicists began to realize that particles like electrons behave in impossible ways. They pop in and out of existence. They can be in two places at once. But when they looked closer at what these particles actually were, the solid model collapsed. They found that particles are actually excitations in a field. Think of the field like a guitar string. The electron is not a bead on the string. The electron is the note the string makes when it is plucked. This means that the entire periodic table of elements, the carbon in your skin, the iron in your blood, the oxygen in your lungs, is just a collection of different musical notes played on the quantum. The universe is literally a symphony. And if the universe is a symphony, then the creator is the composer. But here is the twist that the ancient mystics tried to tell us. You are not just the audience. You are also the instrument, and in some rare moments of lucidity, you are the player. This realization shifts the entire paradigm of what it means to be human. If the universe is a symphony, and you are an instrument, then the quality of your life is determined strictly by how well you are tuned. Most of us are walking around like out-of-tune pianos, wondering why the music of our lives sounds like noise. We blame the conductor, we blame the audience, we blame the sheet music, but the problem is in the tension of the strings. In the early 1990s, a team of Russian biophysicists and linguists, led by Dr. Peter Garyaev, made a discovery that should have been on the front page of every newspaper in the world. They were investigating the vibrational behavior of DNA. We are taught that DNA is just a biological internet, a fixed code that determines if you have blue eyes or a genetic predisposition to illness. But Garyaev found something that contradicts the rigid dogma of Western biology. He discovered that the non-coding part of DNA, the 90% that scientists arrogantly call junk DNA, actually follows the same grammatical rules as human language. It has syntax, it has semantics, it has grammar. But here is the part they don't want you to, or at least the part they don't know how to explain. They found that living DNA substance can be reacted to and changed by laser light that has been modulated by language. In simple terms, you can rewrite the genetic code using words and frequencies. They successfully transformed frog embryos into salamander embryos simply by transmitting the DNA information patterns through frequency, without cutting or splicing a single gene. This suggests that our bodies are not built by hard matter, but by biological language. We are text files that have been printed into 3D. This scientific breakthrough in the 90s accidentally confirmed a technique that the Hermetic magicians of Alexandria were using 2,000 years ago. They didn't call it wave genetics. They called it Heka, the art of authoritative speech. They believed that if you could pronounce the words with the correct intonation, pitch, and intent, you could overwrite the script of reality. This is why the ancient texts warn so heavily against lying. To a mystic, a lie is not just a moral failing, it is a distortion of the signal. If you lie, you introduce static into your own broadcasting mechanism. You become an unreliable instrument, and the universe stops responding to you. Have you ever noticed that when you are in a state of deep fear or anxiety, your voice physically changes? It gets higher, tighter, more restricted. This is your instrument constricting. The ancient mystery schools, from the Pythagoreans in Croton to the Essenes in Qumran, imposed a strict rule on their initiates: the vow of silence. For a period of up to 5 years, a student was not allowed to speak a single word. Modern historians think this was just a harsh discipline to teach obedience. They are missing the point entirely. The silence wasn't about obedience, it was about pressure. Imagine a steam engine. If you leave all the valves open, the steam escapes, and the engine has no power. But if you close the valves, the pressure builds. The silence was designed to build the psychic steam of the initiate. By not leaking their energy through idle chatter, gossip, and complaints, they accumulated a reservoir of vibrational potential. When they finally broke their vow and spoke their first word after 5 years, that word carried the weight of a thunderclap. It had the power to heal, to banish, and to manifest, because it was backed by the momentum of accumulated silence. Today, we do the opposite. We leak our steam constantly. We tweet, we post, we comment. We fill every silence with podcasts and music. We have become a civilization of open valves. Is it any wonder that we feel powerless? Is it any wonder that our words feel hollow? That our affirmations don't work? That our prayers feel like they are hitting a ceiling? We have no pressure. We have no silence. In 2019, a CIA declassified document, the Gateway Process Archives, accidentally confirmed the exact mechanism the monks were using. The document details a technique called resonant tuning. It involves using the voice to create a specific hum in the chest and head, which mechanically vibrates the cerebrospinal fluid. This vibration creates a standing wave in the ventricles of the brain, essentially synchronizing the left and right hemispheres into a single, focused laser beam of consciousness. The CIA wasn't looking for God. They were looking for a way to enhance remote viewing capability, but they stumbled upon the biological mechanism of prayer. They found that when the brain is in this synchronized state, the signal it broadcasts bypasses the noise of the immediate environment and interacts with the quantum field directly. This leads us to the terrifying and liberating truth about the observer. Quantum physics tells us that the observer collapses the wave function, but it doesn't tell us how. It's not just about looking at something with your eyes, it's about looking at it with your frequency. The universe doesn't speak English or Spanish or Chinese, it speaks frequency. It responds to the signal you are emitting, not the thoughts you are pretending to think. You can stand in front of a mirror and say, "I am wealthy," 1,000 times, but if the frequency of your gut is vibrating at the level of, "I am terrified of poverty," the universe will only hear the fear. It will match the fear. The secret that so many pop spirituality books try to sell is often incomplete because it focuses on the mental image. But the image is just the blueprint, the sound, the vibration, the feeling. That is the brick and mortar. The ancient Egyptians had a concept for this called Ma'at. It refers to cosmic order, truth, and balance. To speak with Ma'at meant that your heart, your frequency, and your tongue, your words, were in perfect alignment. If they were out of sync, your creation would fail. This is the definition of integrity. It is structural integrity. But the craziest thing happens when you actually try to find this silence in the modern world. You realize that the silence is loud. If you go into an anechoic chamber, a room designed to absorb 99.9% of sound, you will not hear nothing. After a few minutes, you will hear two sounds, a high-pitched whistle and a low, thrumming beat. The high pitch is your nervous system operating. The low beat is your blood circulating. You are never truly silent. You are a biological machine that is always humming. The goal of the ancient meditative practices was to tune into a third sound, one that sits behind the blood and the nerves. The Anahata Nada, the unstruck sound. This sound is described in the Upanishads as the roar of a waterfall, or the buzzing of bee, or the sound of a distant flute. It is the carrier wave of the universe. When you can hear this sound, you are no longer just an individual ego fighting for survival. You are plugged into the mains. You are resonating with the background radiation of creation itself. This brings us to a specific historical anomaly that has puzzled researchers for decades. Why do so many ancient sacred sites, from the Hypogeum in Malta to the Neolithic passage tombs in Ireland, resonate at exactly 110-111 Hz? This isn't a random coincidence. It happened in cultures that had no contact with each other, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years. In 2008, researchers from UCLA conducted a pilot study on this specific frequency. They found that when human subjects were exposed to 110 Hz, the activity in their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain associated with language processing and the ego, suddenly switched off. At the same time, the part of the brain associated with intuition, creativity, and emotional processing switched on. The ancients had built stone machines designed to shut down the analytical mind. They knew that the ego, the voice in your head that won't shut up, is the jammer. It is the source of the static. By using the 110 Hz frequency, they could mechanically suppress the jammer and open the channel to the divine. They weren't just sitting in caves. They were sitting inside massive stone headphones tuned to the frequency of the soul. Think about the implications of this. We are constantly surrounded by the hum of electricity, 50 or 60 Hz. The buzz of Wi-Fi, the noise of traffic. These are dissonant frequencies. They keep us locked in the beta brainwave state of stress and survival. We are literally being vibrated into a state of anxiety by our infrastructure. The fall of man might not be a moral story about eating an apple. It might be a technical description of moving from a harmonic environment, Eden, into a dissonant one. But what happens when a normal person tries to retune themselves today, without a pyramid or a cave? The process often begins with a crisis, the breakdown of the old melody. We call it a breakdown, but it is actually a breakthrough. The dissonance becomes so painful that the system forces a reboot. This is the dark night of the soul. It is the silence descending upon you whether you want it or not. There is a forbidden technique, often whispered about in the corridors of esoteric schools, called the vibration of the name. It is not about chanting a deity's, it is about vibrating your own existence. The practice involves sitting in total silence and locating the feeling of I am in the body. Not the words I am, but the sensation of existing. And then, allowing that sensation to expand until it has a tone. It sounds abstract until you feel it. It is a sensation of heat rising up the spine, a ringing in the ears that feels like pressure, a sudden clarity where the world looks sharper, more high definition. This is the moment the observer wakes up. The wave function stops wavering and begins to collapse into the reality you actually want, rather than the one you are afraid of. But there is a trap here, a trap that has caught many seekers. The trap is getting addicted to the phenomena. You see the lights, you hear the sounds, you feel the bliss, and you think, I have arrived. You haven't arrived. You have just tuned the radio. The show hasn't started yet. The show is what you do with that clarity. The Gnostic Gospels, specifically the Gospel of Thomas, contain a saying of Jesus that was left out of the Bible. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. This is a law of physics. Energy cannot be destroyed. If you have a frequency within you, a talent, a truth, a love, and you do not express it, sound it out. That energy turns inward. It becomes dissonant. It becomes disease. The sin is not breaking up. The sin is silence when you meant to sing. The universe is waiting for your note. It has left a gap in the symphony specifically. If you don't play it, the harmony remains incomplete. This is why you feel that nagging sense of dissatisfaction, no matter how much money you or how many things you buy. That dissatisfaction is the conductor tapping the baton, waiting for you to come in. Could this be the reason you sometimes feel a lump in your throat when you want to speak your truth but hold it back? That lump is the wave function, trying to collapse, and your fear holding it in a state of superposition. The pain is the friction between who you are and who you are pretending to be. The next document I'm about to show you was removed from the Vatican archives in 1962 because it contained a prayer method that didn't require a priest. It was a text that described prayer not as asking for something, but as feeling the state of the wish. This mirrors exactly what quantum mechanics calls future causation. In the quantum world, time is not a straight arrow. The future can affect the past. When you assume the feeling of the end state, when you vibrate at the frequency of the reality you want, you are essentially sending a signal back in time to your present self, pulling you towards that future. You are not pushing your life forward. You are being pulled by the magnet of your own frequency. Most people pray from a state of lack. Please give me this. The frequency of please give me, the frequency of I don't have. The universe hears I don't have, and it gives you more of not having. It is a perfect mirror. The ancient method was to enter the silence, generate the feeling of gratitude, as if the event had already happened, and let that frequency emanate from the heart. Gratitude is the acoustic signature of reception. When you feel gratitude, the universe knows the transaction is complete, even if the physical evidence hasn't arrived yet. This is the ultimate hack. This is the philosopher's stone. It isn't a rock that turns lead into gold. It is the ability to transmute the lead of your current circumstances into the gold of your potential future through the alchemy of sound and feeling. But the question remains, if this power is so accessible, why is it so hard to maintain? Why do we fall back into the old songs of worry and fear so easily? The answer lies in a principle of physics discovered in 1665 by a Dutch mathematician named Christian Huygens. It is called entrainment. Huygens noticed that if he placed two pendulum clocks on the same wall, no matter how they started, within a day they would eventually swing in perfect unison. The vibrations traveled through the wood of the wall and forced the clocks to synchronize. The stronger rhythm always pulls the weaker rhythm to its beat. This is why you fall back. You are a single pendulum trying to hold a high frequency in a world that is a massive wall of low-frequency chaos. The news, the traffic, the skepticism of your friends, the collective fear of the economy, this is a massive, heavy pendulum swinging at a slow, dense rhythm. Unless your internal signal is stronger than the external noise, you will be entrained. You will sync up with the wall. This explains why the ancient mystery schools were built in isolation, why the monasteries were on mountaintops, why the Desert Fathers went into the caves. They weren't hiding from the world. They were removing themselves from the wall to stabilize their own pendulum. They needed to strengthen their signal until it was unshakable. But you don't live in a cave. You live in the matrix. You have to learn how to be the strongest clock on the wall. And this leads us to the practical mechanism that turns this philosophy into a weapon. The ancients didn't just leave us myths. They left us a manual on how to override entrainment. The key is not in the brain. The brain is reactive. The key is in the oscillator that sits in the center of your chest. In 1991, the Institute of HeartMath discovered that the heart has its own intrinsic nervous system, a little brain with 40,000 neurons that can sense, feel, learn, and remember. But what really shocked the researchers was the discovery that the heart generates an electromagnetic field 5,000 times stronger than the brain. Let that sink in. 5,000 times stronger. We have been trying to change our reality by thinking different thoughts using the brain, which is like trying to move a boulder with an AA battery. Meanwhile, We are ignoring the nuclear reactor in our chest. The Egyptian weighing of the heart ceremony wasn't a metaphor for being a nice person. It was a technical diagram. If the heart was heavy, filled with dense, low-frequency emotions like guilt or fear, the soul could not ascend to the higher dimensions. It was physically too heavy to resonate with the higher plane. So, how do you lighten the heart? How do you use this 5,000-fold power to collapse the quantum wave function in your favor? The technique appears in the Upanishads, in the Taoist exercises, and in the Hesychast practice of the Christian monks. It involves a biological hack that connects your voice directly to your nervous system. It is the vagus nerve hum. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body, wandering from your brainstem down to your colon, touching every major organ on the way. It is the information superhighway of your body. Recent studies have shown that mechanically vibrating vagus nerve essentially forces the body out of fight or flight and into rest, and it switches the operating system from survival to creation, peace. And the most effective way to vibrate it is not with a device, but with your own vocal cords. Here's the protocol, stripped of the religious dogma. You can do this in your car, in the shower, or before a high-stakes meeting. Step 1 is the visual fast. You must close your eyes. As long as your eyes are open, your brain is processing millions of bits of data per second, locking you into the external illusion. Closing your eyes cuts the data stream by 80%. Step 2 is the audible anchor. You take a deep breath, and on the exhale, you make a low, humming sound, like a bee. You don't do it with your throat, you do it with your chest. You need to physically feel the cartilage of your rib cage vibrate. This isn't singing. This is mechanical engineering. You are physically shaking the tension out of your vagus nerve. Step 3 is the coherence lock. As you hum, you move your attention from your head to your heart. You visualize the sound originating from the center of your chest. This creates a feedback loop called heart-brain coherence. When you do this for just 3 minutes, the jagged, chaotic waveforms of your stress hormones smooth out into a perfect sine wave. When you are in this state, you are no longer a weak pendulum. You have become a magnet. This is the state where "ask and it shall be given" actually works. You are broadcasting a coherent signal that cuts through the noise of the world like a laser through fog. But wait until you hear what happened to the monk who reached the final stage of this practice during a study in 2002. The researchers at the University of Wisconsin were monitoring a Tibetan monk named Mingyur Rinpoche inside an fMRI machine. They asked him to generate a state of compassion, essentially, a high-frequency heart state. The moment he began, the needle on the readout didn't just go up, it jumped off the scale. His brain synchronized in gamma waves, the fastest, most high-energy brain waves possible, at a level never before seen in neuroscience. The machine literally couldn't handle the signal. He wasn't just relaxing, he was generating enough energy to light up a city block. This proves that the myths about saints performing miracles, healing the sick with a touch, or changing the weather, are not fairy tales. They are accounts of individuals who learned how to maximize their voltage. They became superconductors of the divine frequency. However, there is a warning label on this technology that the modern New Age movement conveniently peels off. When you start to raise your frequency, you will experience backlash. Newton's third law applies to metaphysics as well. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. As you try to spin your pendulum faster, the wall of your old reality will try to slow you down. You will face sudden challenges. Your car will break down. An old ex will call you. You will get a sudden flu. This is not bad luck. This is the resistance of the old structure trying to maintain homeostasis. It is a test of your signal strength. Most people take this resistance as a sign that they are doing something wrong. Oh, I tried to be positive, but everything went wrong, so it doesn't work. No, everything went wrong because it is working. You are pushing against the density of your old life. The friction creates heat. The chaos is the sound of the old mold cracking so the new form can... Have you ever cleaned a very dirty room, and halfway through, it looked 10 times worse than when you started? That is exactly where you are in the process. The dust is in the air. The mess is exposed. This is the moment where 99% of people quit. They look at the mess and say, "I prefer the order of the dirt." They go back to sleep. They lower their frequency back to the baseline of the wall. But if you hold the note, if you persist in the hum, if you maintain the coherence through the chaos, the dust settles. The wall begins to vibrate with the entrainment reverses. Instead of the world pulling you down, you start to pull the world. You walk into a room and people stop fighting. You enter a situation and the solution appears. You are no longer fighting reality, you are conducting it. This is the secret of the golden age described in the myths. It wasn't a time when gold fell from the sky. It was a time when humanity lived in resonance with the fundamental frequency of the cosmos. The fall, was the descent into dissonance. The apocalypse, which literally means unveiling in Greek, is the return to harmony. We are standing on the edge of a new acoustic era. Science is finally catching up to the shamans. We now know that sound can levitate objects, acoustic levitation. We know sound can boil water, sonoluminescence. We know sound can kill cancer cell. The tools are here. The manual has been decoded. The only variable left is the operator. You are the operator. The universe has been waiting for billions of years for you to stop being a passive listener and start being an active composer. The sheet music is in your DNA. The instrument is your body. The conductor is your heart. The only question is, are you brave enough to play your solo while the rest of the orchestra is still tuning up? In exactly 4 minutes, you'll discover the one word that dissolves the illusion instantly. But before we get there, we must address the final barrier. The one thing that keeps even the most advanced seekers trapped in the loop of seeking, but never finding. It is the addiction to the search itself. We have become spiritual tourists, collecting techniques like souvenirs, but never actually moving into the house. We read about the honey, we study the chemical composition of the honey, but we never taste the honey. The word that dissolves the illusion is a word you have likely spoken thousands of times without knowing its power. It is the word that closes the prayer of billions of people across the planet. Amen. Most people think Amen simply means, so be it. They think it is a period at the end of a sentence. But historically and esoterically, it is far more than punctuation. In the ancient Egyptian tradition, Amun was the name of the hidden god, the invisible creative force that permeated the universe but could not be seen. When the Gnostics and early Christians used Amen, they were not just finishing a thought, they were invoking the Amun, the silence behind the sound. They were sealing the frequency. Think of it like saving a document on your computer. You can type for hours, prayer intention, but if you do not hit enter, Amen, the data is not written to the hard drive. Speaking Amen with full intent is the act of collapsing the wave function. It is the moment you release the tension of the wish and trust the mechanism of the universe to deliver. It is the ultimate act of faith, and faith, in physics, is simply the absence of resistance. This brings us to the final, and perhaps most difficult realization of this journey. We have talked about sound, about frequency, about controlling reality, but the ultimate mastery is not in the noise. It is in the silence. The great 13th century mystic Meister Eckhart said, "There is nothing so like God as silence." Why? Because silence is the only thing that has no form, no limit, and no opposite. Sound has an opposite, silence. Light has an opposite, darkness. But the true void, the womb of creation, has no opposite. It just is. We are terrified of silence. We fill our lives with podcasts, music, notifications, and chatter, because when the noise stops, we are forced to face the vastness of our own being. We are afraid that if we stop the noise, we will cease to exist. But the ancients tell us the exact opposite is true. You only truly begin to exist when the noise stops. Have you ever wondered why the most profound moments of your life, the moment you fell in love, the moment you saw a breathtaking landscape, the moment of deep grief, were moments where you were speechless? That speechlessness is not a lack of words. It is the transcendence of words. It is the moment your individual frequency synchronizes so perfectly with the cosmic frequency that there is no friction, no rub, and therefore no sound. You become the music. So here is the challenge for the days ahead. You have the tools. You know that your voice is a wand, your heart is a generator, and your DNA is a text file waiting to be rewritten. But knowledge is not power. Knowledge is just potential energy. Application is power. Do not just watch this video and click on the next one. That is the trap of the dopamine. Instead, try the Vegas hum for 7 days. Try the visual fast. Test the machinery. See if the wall of your reality begins to crack. See if the coincidences start to pile up until they are statistically impossible to ignore. The universe is not silent. It is singing a song of infinite complexity. It is singing you. The only question that remains, the question that will determine the trajectory of your life from this second forward, is simple. Are you going to continue being a source of static, or are you finally ready to harmonize with the song? The sheet music is open. The conductor is waiting.